about that. Okay, Kimberly Thyberg. Kim Thyberg, thank you for joining me on the Boosting Achievement ESL podcast and video. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Selva. I'm so grateful to be here and to be talking with you. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We are going to do another show where we just fangirl each other because I am a huge fan of yours. I am a huge fan of yours. And you always say nice things to me, but we can spend a whole show talking about all that. And we will. You are one of those champions out there. So I'm going to make sure people know how to follow you. I do appreciate everything that you share. Last year was your first year as a newcomer teacher. Is that correct?
Yes. So last year was my first year officially as a newcomer teacher. I had been doing, I taught Spanish for 13 years. And during some of those years, I was half Spanish and half ESL support. But then I finally got my TESOL. And then when a position opened up, then I transitioned into the ESL teacher role. And I've had the newcomers for the past couple of years, which I love, and I'm so grateful to be able to be teaching them. It's an honor.
I went mute again. Okay, it is the best job in the building. I swear, I always say that. And so it really is, and nobody can be overwhelming, especially at the beginning of a school year, like where we are right now. So I'm showing people, if you are watching the YouTube video, I'm showing Kim's, her Twitter page, and you can follow her. She's at Kimberly Thyberg, Thyberg. And I will have her, her Twitter handle in today's show notes, because just from the perspective of, do you want to be following somebody who shares things that are working? She's been doing that, she did it all year long last year, and I use her tweets in my professional development. So I want to say thank you for that, for being part of my professional learning network, and make sure people know to be following you. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Selva. Yeah, no, the professional learning network is like, it's everything. I'm just trying to learn and grow, and trying to do the best by my students. And I'm learning from you, and I'm learning from all the folks in our network. And I'm just learning, and I'm trying.
Well, we talk about that, right? That we don't want to try to be perfect. We want to get really, really good at getting better.
Yes.
That's where I am in life right now. Everything I do, I want to be doing to get better, including this episode, including this show, because you reached out to me about that you had something happen. Really, this show today, we will do another show another time about all of our ESL strategies and boosting achievement and all the things that you're doing that are working. It is so amazing. We need to do that show. We keep saying we're going to do that show, and I really appreciate your willingness. But today we're going to talk about just have a real authentic conversation, because you reached out to me because you're going back to school tomorrow, Monday, but Friday, something traumatic happened at your high school.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So we don't have to go into details about what happened, but tell me about the kids left, right? A portion of the day they had to leave. They were scared. Everybody's okay.
Everybody's okay.
Actually hurt, but it was traumatic. And so they all went home on Friday, and they're coming back tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, they all, we were dismissed. The kiddos were dismissed about halfway through the day, before lunch. And yes, after a traumatic event. And yes, now we're all coming back to school together on Monday, tomorrow.
So what it sounds like the question is, and I can read your question in my Twitter DM, what's the best way to come back together in a classroom after all of us collectively together experience something traumatic, including our community?
Right.
Is that the right question?
Right. Yes, precisely. Yes. Thank you.
Well, I thought, you know what, let's record this, because I know I don't have all the answers, but always, like, our thinking through it is going to get us to a better place. We just said that, right? Our together we're better.
Yes.
And I've had some experiences, and now you've had some experiences, and we can talk about it, and I can share links to people I'm following to get better about trauma. I would definitely, I'm going to share some authors or some books, but also there's a podcast that I've been listening to and a Facebook page where they're focusing on being trauma informed. So I'll share that. But I just wanted to talk you through it. How are you doing, by the way? How are you yourself as a person doing after something super scary happened in your school?
Yeah, well, coming home and just some adrenaline coming down from the adrenaline, and just exhausted, great grateful that we're like everyone's okay, and just trying to focus on, okay, well, now I'm a teacher and this happened, and yeah, it was tough, but now I'm home and I'm a mom, and I'm a wife, and it's important to to take care of myself, and I got to take care of my family, and just we have to take care of ourselves to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tiring. More tired, I would say, than normal, but I think we all experience things a little bit differently, and yeah, that gotta keep moving forward.
Right, we do. We need to keep moving forward. I know the pandemic taught us that, like, we have to keep moving forward. We have to look for hope. We have to, somehow continue to move forward with that hope and that expectation that things improve.
Yes.
That's how I got through some really difficult things. I think that's how our field got through some really difficult times. And, but it was almost like you hesitated, like you didn't expect that question, like, how are you doing? And
right.
I can appreciate that, because as an educator, your questions in the DM to me were all about your kids. Like, you're focused on, what am I doing for them? What am I doing for them? What am I doing for them? And that's true. We want to think about what's the best way to come back together, because I'm responsible for all these kids. And I know we say this a lot, but we have to take care of ourselves first, right? Like, make sure there is something to give.
Yes.
So I'm glad that they sent y'all home early, at least to, catch your breath. I'm glad you had a couple of days at least. And that you're trying to think about, how do you get healthy and do some things for Kim that are helping your own mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm sending you positive vibes and love and support. And that's one of the reasons I was like, pick up the phone, call me, let's talk, because talking always helps me.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you very much. And I just wish you continued strength. So it was something really, really horrific. We're being, but nobody was hurt.
Right.
People, I would argue, people were absolutely traumatized by this situation. Absolutely. And so that's the bigger picture here. How do we come back together? We're in a place of learning and a place of growing. I'm sure your school is probably going to have some kind of conversations around SEL, around social emotional learning. So I don't know what your school leaders have planned, but I'm sure they're going to say something to the faculty to that effect.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, for whatever it's worth, what happened to me, what traumatic experience it made me think of when I was the newcomer teacher at a high school, and we all experienced something traumatic together, and then we all had to go back to school.
Yeah.
And what that looked like. And then let's just talk about it and see if there are any parallels for you.
Okay.
So Kimberly's question was specifically, what are the routines? What are the things we could do? My students they don't even have command of the English language yet. I'm still trying to create a safe space for them, and we're doing routines, and now this happens and disrupts everything. And so this was back around 2018. I'm in Houston, Texas, and we are, you know what, I'm going to just even stop for everybody listening. I don't mind that this is kind of disjointed. I want to share two things, because I want to be very clear that I am not a trauma informed expert type of person. So I want you to know who I'm following now, because, and it's been helpful to me. So This is a podcast called the Trauma Informed Educators Network. This is a podcast that has a ton of shows. It's on Apple. It's where you get your podcasts, a lot of places where you get your podcasts. I just have been listening because there's always guests and the folks who run this podcast. It's solid. It's solid. I really like this podcast. So I would offer that to people. It's called, again, the Trauma Informed Educators Network. They have a Facebook group, and here's the Facebook group, the Trauma Informed Educators Network Facebook page. And so you could follow that as well. Anybody listening, I'm just trying to show what are some things that I'm doing on my journey, because you and I work with students who have experienced trauma before they ever come to us.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you agree, Kimberly, that most of your students, tell us about the typical student that you serve. What is their demographic? What does your newcomer class look like in terms of where they've come from? Do you know anything about their journeys or anything like that?
Right, right. Well, the majority of my newcomers are, most are coming from Guatemala. We do have a couple of our kiddos from Mexico, a couple from Honduras. We do have one kiddo from Uzbekistan, but the majority of our kiddos are asylum seekers, and the majority crossed unaccompanied, and they've been placed with their guardians, might be their older sibling or an aunt or uncle. That's the majority of my students. Most have Spanish as a first or second language. Most have, not all, but many have dialect as a first or second languages, but yes, as well. And many have, I'd say the majority have some interruptions in their schooling. I know I have one kiddo who hasn't been to school in several years back, and the last time he attended was a few years ago in Guatemala, but that's probably reflective of the majority of my newcomers.
Right. So when you teach newcomers in high school, if you are that teacher that has the ESL or English language development class, more and more, we are seeing students with interruptions in education because of what Kim's talking about here. It's what's happening in the world. I know you tweeted some data that I shared here. The latest figures from the United Nations shows this trajectory of how many students, how many people in the world are displaced. It's like almost 90 million people. It's record highs, higher number every single year for the last decade. So I guess my point in that is Kim and I, and anyone that serves an English language development class in public school, you probably have students who have interruptions in education. Maybe we're going to see more and more. We're going to see more and more is what I'm saying, because of these figures that I'm showing from the United Nations here, and I'll put them in the show notes. But also Kim is recognizing that her students have already been through hard things. They've already been through hard things. If you've had an interruption in education, something difficult happened, or you would be in school. Somewhere in the world, something is happening, either your journey or the place you live or the way you live is difficult. So we know we need to have a lens for how to help kids feel safe. And like education is the answer, and any education you can get is going to be the answer to better things. You get to keep all the learning, no matter what. And so we're operating from that mindset. And so I appreciate that. So you're working with these students, like I was on Friday, who are new. I'm also showing your social contracts here, examples and stuff. So you have a real high bar. You have a high bar for these kiddos. Thank you for tagging the book and stuff. but something like this is so unexpected. Something that happened in your classroom is so unexpected. Like I said, I wanted to show Trauma Informed Educators Network, because these are, the more informed we are, the more prepared we are, the more we can help each other. What do we do in these situations? The podcast. There's also a book by, here are the authors right here: Lourdes Alvarez Ortiz, Judy Haynes, and Debbie Zacharian. It's called Teaching to Strengths. And that is supporting students living with trauma, violence, and chronic stress. I got this book a while back, and these are like Debbie and Judy. Some of these folks do ESL stuff, but this is not about ESL. It's about kids in trauma. Yes, a lot of our language learners, a lot of our multilingual learners, this book is going to be helpful, but it's not only supporting language learners. It's about trauma. And so it's a great resource I would also point people to. So there is more, thankfully, there's more out there now talking about our social emotional state of the teachers, that's one thing the pandemic gave us, is talking more about how we feel in our learning environments and the mental state of people, and in a safe space, and how we can bounce back, or the resiliency and things of students, and how we can help support that. And so, okay, that was a little bird walk to make sure that I'm clear that that's not my wheelhouse, but I'm learning. So something that we did, what happened was, a lot of people are familiar with Hurricane Harvey, or had heard about it, or were hearing about it when it happened. Hurricane Harvey was a hurricane that hit Houston. Here, I'll just screen share again for anybody watching the show notes or watching the video. Hurricane Harvey happened years ago, and I was teaching at that time. It was a major hurricane in 2017, and it came into Houston, and I live in Houston, and it sat over our city for so long that it wasn't even the storm as much as it was the amount of rain. So here's Texas, if you're watching, here's Texas, and this is the size of the storm. If you're looking, you can just Google, if you are listening to a podcast, Google Hurricane Harvey, and you can see I'm right here in Texas, at the south of Texas, and you can see how giant the storm is. And it wasn't just the storm being so strong, it was the flooding. 60% of our city, 60% of our city was underwater. 60%. Think about 60%. Think about our hospitals, we are a big city for our hospitals, and the whole medical center was just flooded out, everything. And here's an aerial view. I can't even describe, because what happened was the storm sat over our city for so long and it didn't move on. And the flooding was the issue, and the aftermath from the flooding. So many people died during this. And we had people in our community that passed away during this. And we were 2 weeks into the school year with my newcomers, 2 weeks. And then we were out for several weeks. And then, I mean, we couldn't come back. There was no electricity. There was no running water. My husband had not been through a hurricane, so he didn't understand why I was going, fill up the cars with gas, get all the groceries we can, because it looks like it's coming for us. And he's like, well, we're not going to leave town. I was like, no, there will be no way to get gas afterwards. It's not that we're going to try to go somewhere. It's that no one will be able to come in, and we won't be able to leave, because trees will fall and things will happen where it's just going to be like a wasteland after for so long. So there was the trauma of the event. There was the trauma of one girl came back and told a story of what happened to her in our neighborhood during the actual flood. But again, it was a couple of weeks later when we came back and had to do school again. So I'm speaking from a completely different, but horrific, right? A natural disaster. I'm talking about a natural disaster, but still trauma, collective trauma that we all experienced. And now we're coming back together. Right. So One thing that our district did that I thought was right in retrospect, this was way before the pandemic. Again, we didn't have this big bright light on SEL, but we started with that. A lot of our teachers had never had trauma-informed training, including me. And so they talked to us. Thankfully, they asked us how we were doing, and we got grace of who can and can't teach right now. And we just came together as we could. And they talked to us about what they did, bring in like people to talk to us, just, I mean, just very briefly about trauma, like what are the big things that you need to know. And so I can't remember all of it because I was traumatized, you know, I mean, you're just like,
Yeah.
everybody had horrific personal stories. Your colleagues had horrible stories about family members and things that had happened, horrific. People were dealing with their own homelessness, teachers, right, at the time. And so one thing that they told me that I still remember was like one of my biggest things. It was the first ray of hope that I was like, okay, I can help these kids. Is the lady who was doing the training said, when people go through trauma, they're all different people and they all have different backgrounds and they all have different personalities and different abilities to deal with stress and trauma. Everybody's going to respond in their own unique way, right? So she said something really, really important to keep in mind is that we can't paint them all with the same brush. We can't, because often what people do is go, oh my God, these kids are from trauma. These kids are safe. These kids crossed a border. These kids were in a war. These kids saw whatever. They can't blank. Or they must be suffering from post-traumatic stress because they went through that. So that's not true, first of all. She said, no, you cannot say 100% of the people that went through the same war experience, whatever, are dealing with it in the same way. You don't paint them all with the same brush. What you do is what we know to do as educators, which is you have relationships that you lean into. You need to somehow figure out who needs more, because 100% of the kids in this building are hundreds of kids we have. Not all 100 of them are going to need counseling, but all of them need to feel safe.
Right.
All of them need to feel safe, like we are in a place and that we're all together here and that you matter here and that you belong here. They all need to know what's available to them. So your school is probably going to have some announcements, some messages about counseling services that are available to families. As an educator, I could go on right now, wherever you are listening in the United States and parts of Canada, and Google 211, 211, not 311, not 411, not 911, Google 211. And that is the United Way helpline. And what it does, and they have it in many different languages, they can help us if we want to know where counseling is in our area, if we want to know where food assistant is in our area, if you want to know where services are in your area. So every year since then, we just do that at the beginning of the school year. And we call the number because it's a phone number or a website. And we have the kids talk to it in Arabic and different languages. And we tell the operator, hi, I'm a class, I'm at Northbrook High School, and I've got kids here that are new to the country, and we're wondering what's in our area. Could we have somebody that speaks in Swahili? And the operator will talk to you and say, okay, so you need to hold, or you push buttons for the most popular or most prevalent, like Arabic, Spanish, stuff like that. But if it's another language, you can hold and they will get somebody. It's amazing. It's incredible. And so I would play around with that as a teacher. I always tell teachers to just kind of play around with 211 and also do it with your class. You teach high school. Or do it with your parents, a parent night. Like, we should know about this. And I don't want to embarrass anybody. So I always say, let's in case you have a friend that needs help, you will want to know about this. And that's actually true for everybody, right? So there's that. If you're on an island, if you and your kids go through something difficult, or if you want to prepare for that, no matter what the difficulty is, it's good to know what services are available for free in your area. So there's that. The other thing about the don't paint them all with the same brush is, okay, they told us the first thing you need to do is like, kind of like elementary. We're going to start doing something that looks kind of like circle time, where nobody's forced to speak, but everybody's invited to speak. Everybody's invited. And there are other ways for output. Native language is totally fine. A journal entry with sentence stems, something that was hard for me, something that gives me hope, drawing. They wanted us to focus for the first few days on how do you feel, and things like just having conversations with students. And as an educator, if you let the students speak that want to speak, and then you do one-on-one with kids, like make sure I'm here. So I remember the first thing I did, they gave us like a little worksheet that I'll try to put in the show notes if I can find it, that was like a flower with big petals, and on each petal you wrote something you're grateful for, like we're just trying to do SEL type of things. And I did want to have the big message, and I use Google Translate, make sure everybody understands that you can talk to me without everybody. You can come to me if you're starting, to be really super anxious or anything like that, And what was so interesting was I was like, does anybody want help right now? Does anybody want to say that they want to talk to a counselor right now? Nobody did in front of their friends. Nobody did. And then I was like, okay, but I just want you to know that I'm here, and I don't have all the answers, but we have people. We'll make sure that you have someone you could talk to. And nobody came forward. But 2 days later, one boy came up to me and said, you know how you said I could come to you for if I'm going through, if it's hard? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he said, okay, I'm gay and my parents don't know it. And okay, Kim, I'm getting emotional because that wasn't about the hurricane. That wasn't even about the hurricane. That wasn't about all the trauma. But we open a space. We open a space, and we don't know what it made me think of as, there are schools right now that are not going through anything traumatic, and there are kids that need to hear what we were telling our kids. And we're a community, and we're strong. We're a strong community. You can have that rally cry that we're stronger than this, and it's true. It's true. It brought us closer together, trying to get through something difficult together. And we want to lean into that, but also, that's what I learned, is we want to lean into that, but also make sure that we are equipped with what kids need, the ones who need more. Did I say anything there that resonates with you or might be helpful for you tomorrow?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to go. I definitely want to share 211. I know you've talked about it before in other podcasts, and that's something I need to look at, and maybe call tomorrow or this week, as a class, so they can see like what it is and that it is available in different languages. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, and then the focus on like some of the social emotional learning. And yeah, you're right, everyone, you can't paint everyone with the same brush and assume that they're experiencing things in the same way and experiencing even trauma in the same way. But I think that will be really helpful if they get to somehow provide an opportunity for them to write or express. And the sentence stems, something that gives me hope is, and I think I'll use that tomorrow. That's really helpful.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, we want to acknowledge and not sugarcoat and not just say, si se puede, you're strong. You've been through harder things than this, because that's the reality for a lot of our kiddos too. After that hurricane, I was in a grocery store, and there was just nothing on the shelves. And our house was one of the ones that didn't flood. And there was even guilt the people who didn't flood that we were going through, like, oh. And so we were but we didn't have any electricity. Everything in our house had spoiled. We were out there trying to help other people who were in our neighborhood, who were in other places around Houston, who were having to just take out their walls and stuff. It was just ridiculous. And so, but we would go by the grocery store to see if there was anything yet. And there was just stuff nobody wanted. And I saw one of my students and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? You should be down at the convention center, because I knew their apartments had just been, horribly flooded. And I was like, why are you still here? And he's like, well, we didn't want to go down there. We're okay. And I was like, no, they have electricity down there. They have, because I mean, after the flood left, it was hot. It was August. It was sticky. There were mosquitoes. There was no air conditioning to get out of the mosquitoes. There were snakes in people's houses. It was just disgusting. And so I was like, please, you could go down there. It's free. There's so many people. And he's like, why are you so upset? And I was like, it's just awful. It's just awful. We have not had electricity. We're going on 2 weeks now. And he said, he did his hand like the faucet. He said, do you still have clean water coming out of the bathroom? And, he was like broken English. Do you still have clean water? And I said, yeah, I mean, we don't have any trouble with water. And he was like, so then you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Miss Alba, you can live your whole life without electricity. You're going to be okay. Like, I was like, oh my God, like he made me feel so first world in that problem at that time, right?
Right.
Like, you can cook outside. You can cook. I was like, of course I can. But in my world, this was so, I'm not saying what happened wasn't traumatic, because it was. I'm saying I was underestimating his ability to handle it. That particular kid's ability, this was not the hardest thing he'd seen.
Right.
By a long shot.
Right.
His perspective was good for me. And I'm going to have that kid. I bet you're going to have that kid. And then you're also going to have some kids that is the most traumatic thing they've ever been through. And we have the whole spectrum.
Yes.
We're going to paint them all with the same brush. We just create that safe space. We give them a place to share, which is an opportunity to get to know them better and know who needs more. We tap into the services that are available to us, every service that we know about. But you're still building that relationship. And if nothing else, they have somebody in their lives that they know cares right now. You care deeply, Kim. It's so obvious.
Yeah. We love them. We love our kiddos. We do. We love them.
Yeah, I just want to lift you up for that and thank you for that. I am going to go, but I want to know if there's anything that you want to tell anybody listening, anything about like about your students, about teaching, like what do you want to leave them on? I appreciate that you just asked, hey, what would you do, Carol, if you went through something traumatic? How would you go back to school? And so that's my answer. It worked really well for us to not just start hitting standards again right away. Right. We started with, let's talk, let's open a space. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but let's just make sure you know about this safe space and do some things like that right away.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's really helpful, because I was even struggling with, well, do we go back into the curriculum? Is that going to help? Just routines and okay, but that didn't feel quite right. But I wasn't sure.
And you bring up a great point, and I'm always open to, people telling me different things worked, because every class is different and every teacher is different. So we did go back into, let's read our social contract. Do we want to change it? And I was doing the routines you and I do. I read first, then we read. Don't forget, this is how you're getting sight words. Don't forget, like there was some normalcy to our classroom because of the routines that we put in place, right? So come in, don't forget, you guys, you put that over there. There's safety in the routines. And that trauma woman that came and talked to us, she said some of those kids really just need you to get back to normal.
Right.
This is where they feel normal. Right. And they just need the security of the high bar and the routine and the safe space and the normalcy again. So we wove in SEL but we did do that day. I'm glad you said that, because it's not like, okay, well, we're not doing ESL anymore. We're not doing math anymore. We're just going to do this now. Well, there's some happy medium,
Right.
where we can spend a little bit of our class time or whatever your administrator might give you, even how much time to spend on what. But, offering, and, like when we went in the pandemic, do you remember sometime when it first happened, some assignments were optional for students who really wanted to do it. You saw a lot of that going on out there.
Well,
So
yeah.
I would just like pay real close attention. And if you've got kids that are like, no, miss, I just need to learn English, like, give me more. Okay, give it to them. Okay, I trust you. And today we are going to read our objectives, but today our objectives are, we're going to think about, and if we want to, talk about how we feel using stems like this.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then we
Mhm.
just we do that normalcy of the routine. We give them a ton of grace. And we just give them a ton of grace
Mhm.
right now, and then make them feel confident, and that people go through hard things, and they get through hard things, and you're stronger for it. You really are stronger. And thankfully, no one got hurt in your situation.
Yeah.
Thankfully. But Kim and I have decided not to share the actual situation. But we both agree that it is horrific, and we would not, it was scary, and we don't want anybody to go through anything like that. And so hopefully people can take that and put it in their own context.
Yeah. Thank you. This was very helpful. Thank
Kim,
you.
you're
Thank
very
you
helpful.
so much. Thank you so
You're
much.
very helpful.
Ella.
You're out there being the hero every day, being the classroom teacher every day, being the hero. So just keep being awesome. And again, I'm sorry, I think I cut you off. Was there anything you wanted to say to teachers out there who have the job of being a newcomer teacher, and this is their first year, and they're not sure how these kids are going to make it or how they're supposed to do it? Any words of
Oh,
wisdom?
oh my goodness. The kids are incredible. They believe in them, believe in them. These, like, our kiddos, they can, just to say that they can learn is just not an understatement. Like, they can learn. Of course they can learn. They can succeed. They can not only pass, but they can pass up. They can pass up even their peers and classmates who have, like, grown up here and speak English just fine. Like, they can do it. They can do it. They are so bright. They are so bright. They have so many experiences with them that they bring with them. And they really they can enrich each other. They definitely enrich our classroom. And we just give them the opportunities to study and learn, and watch them grow. They are amazing kiddos, and do it. They can do it. Oh, Dr. Self, I think we're on mute.
Again, I keep doing that. We really do. We share. Can you see this classroom markup here? Are you seeing this?
Yes.
This is one of Kim's tweets from March of last year, where she's labeling a familiar photo using kind of a picture word inductive model, where the students look at the photo and then they label it with her. And you can do so many things from this. It's like a picture word inductive model. I'll put a link to that. I just want to show the kind of thing that Kim is sharing that's working in her classroom. And I'm just honored that you mentioned me, but I'm learning from everything that you're sharing. It's really beautiful and wonderful. And thank you so much.
No, I learned so much from what you share and from what just our professional learning network shares. That's where I'm getting all these ideas that I'm trying.
Better together, baby.
It works. Yes.
Better together.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything you share. Thanks for reaching out and trusting me with this very sensitive kind of thing. Like, it's just an honor that you would think of me. So thank you. I'm better for this conversation, and I appreciate you, Kim Thyberg. We will have that other show soon.
Yes, that'll be awesome. Thank you.
Call me Carol. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, my friend.
Bye-bye.